when you are in trouble, you need to find somebody else to attack. And it seems that the Democrats have found a couple of things to attack. Thing number one is they are going to attack private industry. Right? You saw this yesterday when Jen Psaki was claiming that inflationary spirals in meat and oil were created by greed in private industry, not by bad government policy. Well, now it seems that many of our nation's foremost financial innovators on the Democratic side of the aisle or at the Federal Reserve, they're very upset at the possibility that you might take your money out of the system and put it into something like Bitcoin. Now, full disclosure, I own Bitcoin, I own Ethereum. I'm big advocates for both. I think that Bitcoin is excellent. I think that the possibility of a currency that is not under the centralized control of a government with its own political priorities, I think putting some of your money there is a good idea, which is why I own Bitcoin. I think Ethereum, which is attempting to cut down on the banking system's transaction costs by creating all sorts of innovative new ways to create a trustless financial system, that is a good thing. Understand that the innovation that Bitcoin represents and that a lot of decentralized finance represents is a way to cut out the middleman. The reason that you go to a bank is because banks verify your transactions, right? You know that when you put your money in a bank, the bank is going to be held accountable if the money is gone, right? So you trust the bank, which is why you put your money in the bank. But that also means massive transaction costs because every time you run a credit card, the credit card company has to get in touch with the middleman then has to get in touch with the bank. There are like 7 or 8 companies involved in every credit card transaction, which is why it takes 2 or 3 days for a credit card transaction to actually clear. You know this if you own a business. That just because someone swiped the credit card, it doesn't mean the money is now in your account. Now the money has to go all the way through the system of verification in order for the money to reach your account. When it comes to international transactions, it can take like a week for an international transaction to clear. When it comes to decentralized finance, these transactions can clear like that very, very quickly. And in areas of the world, particularly impoverished areas of the world, where you don't have a good banking system, if you're in Afghanistan, you can't deposit your money in a bank account because there are no banks. What Bitcoin does, what decentralized finance allows, is for you to have that money digitally and transfer it digitally instantaneously. That's a very good thing for the world. And it cuts out a lot of the transaction costs in the middle. The way that it does this is through the blockchain, right? The blockchain is a way of verifying transactions because it basically has a history of every transaction that has happened with blockchain that verifies that these are real transactions because everything is encoded. And what blockchain does is it's a way, the way that you earn Bitcoin, for example, is by verifying transactions. When people talk about mining Bitcoin, it's not somebody on a computer with a pickaxe, right? What mining Bitcoin means is that you have an entire computer system that is essentially decrypting all sorts of transactions and verifying that transactions actually occurred. This is how you provide some sort of stability in the transactional system. Now, the drawback for Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of these other cryptocurrencies is that if somebody were to get your password, they can take all of your money, right? Whereas that is not true with a bank. However, that just means make a better password, right? Don't be an idiot and don't use the same password for all of your stuff. And don't forget your password, right? But the attraction of crypto is that it cuts out the banking system. The attraction of crypto is that it creates a trustless system in which you don't have to trust the person that you're transacting with, and you also don't have to trust a bank to keep your money, right? The blockchain itself is the trust because it is verified, right? Okay, that is the attraction of it. The other attraction of it is that you don't have a centralized government that is going to inflate the currency, where you put your money in a bank and then you just wait for the government to inflate it out of existence, right? If you took $100 and you put it in the bank at a 0% interest rate, just to make the math easy, back in like 1980, and then you took that $100 out of the bank today, it'll be worth like, I don't know, $50, $60, maybe. Okay, so like the inflation rates eat away at savings. This is not true with Bitcoin. Right? When you buy Bitcoin or any other form of crypto that is worth its salt, then what you are actually doing is you are buying a value that is not dependent on infusions of money into the system. Right? So that is the attraction of Bitcoin. And then there are things called stable coins, which are pegged to, for example, the value of the United States dollar. Right? So you can buy a digital form of currency that cuts out the transaction costs and is pegged to the price of the dollar. And so you would think this is a good thing, right? This is a good alternative, and it takes enormous amounts of power away from the government. This is why the government is so scared crapless of cryptocurrency. They are scared so crapless of it that you are going to stop. Like if cryptocurrency ever became a denomination in use, not denominated in dollars, but things started to be denominated in Bitcoin, or you started trading in Bitcoin. It's not stable enough right now for people to really trade in Bitcoin. This is one of the problems with Bitcoin, is that it used to be that there was this concept that Bitcoin would be used in transactions, right? Instead of paying for a car in dollars, you'd pay for it in Bitcoin. The problem is because Bitcoin is still volatile because not enough people buy it and use it. Because of that, the price of a Bitcoin could go up or down. So if you sell a car for a Bitcoin and the Bitcoin is worth $30,000 today, so you're selling a car for 30 grand. Tomorrow, that Bitcoin could be worth $20,000. And so you just lost 10,000 bucks, right? So this is the problem with Bitcoin, but it's going to get more stable over time as there is more and more buy-in. The government is so scared of this stuff. They are so scared of this stuff. They're afraid that they are no longer going to be able to control your monetary future. They're paralyzed in fear from this stuff. So you have Jerome Powell over at the Federal Reserve. It is amazing to me that we are willing to trust people who are actively manipulating the money supply in the United States. This is literally their job. It is not as though they are hiding the ball. They actively acknowledge that what they do every day is manipulate how much your savings are worth. And yet we're supposed to trust them, but not trust a trustless system verified by blockchain. Here's Jerome Powell ripping on Bitcoin.
In terms of, the cryptocurrencies, that are really speculative assets, I don't see them as a financial stability concern at the moment. I do think they are risky. They're not backed by anything, and I think there's big consumer issues for consumers who may or may not understand what they're getting, and there's certainly developments in the markets that are worth following, which are really not in our jurisdiction, but things like the kind of leverage that's built into them and those sorts of things is certainly worth watching.
Oh, they're not backed by anything. Really? So what is the United States dollar backed by? What is it backed by? It used to be backed by gold, not backed by gold anymore. It's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, which is solid as long as you trust the United States. And it's solid as long as you trust the United States government. Well, you know what's one thing that undermines trust in the full faith and credit of the United States? One of those things would be a massive national debt that is eventually going to come to eat up a huge percentage of our GDP every year and make it nearly impossible for us to continue to operate as a free economy without massive rates of taxation or massive cuts to social services. And the full faith and credit of the United States, the question is, which do you trust more? A decentralized system where no one controls it, or a centralized system where Jerome Powell controls it? And the full faith and credit of the United States, which is being blown out on a daily basis. At a certain point, there will be another country that gets wise, lowers its corporate tax rate to 10% and just eats everybody's lunch. Truly. I mean, that will be, the notion that the United States has to lead the world in terms of sort of the economy. It doesn't have to. We're a massive country that gives us certain advantages. We have 340 million people in it. We have this huge territorial grasp, but that doesn't mean that if we spend ourselves into oblivion, there won't be somebody else who comes and eats our lunch. Right? We are benefiting from the fact that the Chinese government, for example, has embraced the stupidest form of economics in terms of communism. Then they moved into a sort of mercantilism. That's also a dumb form of economics, which is why their outsized growth statistics are rooted in the fact that they started from a really, really low baseline. Basically, everyone in China had $0, and now everybody in China has $5. And so they've had a massive growth rate. That does not mean that China's per capita GDP is anywhere near on par with Western Europe or with the United States. The per capita GDP in China right now is still really pretty low. The per capita GDP in China right now is about $10,500 per year. So all of the talk about how the Chinese communist regime has created massive prosperity in China is not true. They just have 1.5 billion people. However, that does not mean that there could not be a country that comes up and realizes that all of the regulatory structures the United States has set up are garbage, that our tax structures are garbage. Joe Biden has pushed a global 15% corporate tax rate. If there were a country that went to 10% corporate tax rate, they would just suck in investors from everywhere. The amount of money that would flow in, if you could guarantee property rights and a predictable legal regime in a state with 10% corporate tax rates, that place would eat our lunch within a decade. It is truly that simple. Okay, but unfortunately, at the same time, these people are saying you should trust the full faith and credit of the United States and you should crack down on Bitcoin. Elizabeth Warren is doing the same thing, right? She's saying decentralized finance is really bad because it allows for illegal transactions. Oh, what does cash do? What is it? Also, you know what's one thing that has allowed for massive illegal transactions? A government-based banking system that has essentially created massive incentives to bail out companies who take bad risks. I mean, seriously, what is more dangerous to the stability and health of the world economy? Truly, what's more dangerous? The fact that some people use decentralized finance to do drug deals, or the fact that every time there's a financial crisis, the taxpayers are on the hook for trillions of dollars? Which one seems more risky to you? Here's Elizabeth Warren ripping on crypto, however.
DeFi is the most dangerous part of the crypto world. This is where the regulation is effectively absent, and no surprise, it's where the scammers and the cheats and the swindlers mix among part-time investors and first-time crypto traders. Shoot, In DeFi, someone can't even tell if they're dealing with a terrorist. Stablecoins provide the lifeblood of the DeFi ecosystem. In DeFi, people need stablecoins to trade between different coins, to trade derivatives, to lend and borrow money, all outside the regulated banking system. Without stablecoins, DeFi comes to a halt.
Okay, so without Elizabeth Warren overlooking a financial system, you should be scared? No, with Elizabeth Warren overlooking the financial system, you should be scared. Again, why would you give these people power? Why? And the answer is they want the power, of course. They desperately want the power, which is why they're now pushing against that. They're also pushing against the institutions. It is not a coincidence that the same day that Elizabeth Warren is calling for a crackdown on decentralized finance, she's also calling for court packing in the pages of the Boston Globe. These people don't care about institutions. They care about power. I know what you're thinking. It's time to binge some more Ben Shapiro videos. Well, you are right. You should. But first, like and subscribe. Perfect. I'll see you in the next video.